Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we are going to be talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that has unfortunately quite a few questions in need of answering, both in sort of the short and the long term here as we prepare for the start of the 2023-2024 season. So, gonna outline a couple of those problems, talk about why they're problems. Also, do want to mention, for this video, we're trying out some different camera settings, so if stuff looks different and hopefully better, maybe not, we'll see. But that is the explanation for why. Doing a little tinkering on the side, but that will not change what we're going to be talking about here. We are talking about those 76ers, so we'll just sort of get things started here. Obviously, the team falls short of expectations in last season's playoffs, right? They fail to get past the second round once again. They end up going down in 7 games to Boston. And because of that sort of continuous inability to get to basically the conference finals or further, now this offseason has introduced some questions, more questions than answers, really, for Philly, which makes some people in the NBA sphere, in the organization, and just the fan base in general, sort of question what the path forward looks like for this team, right? So I talked about problems for the 76ers. Let's just sort of get into the first one here. The first issue for the 76ers, is obviously the James Harden trade request. That one kind of goes without saying. That has been one of the biggest and most persistent headlines that we've seen regarding this team since the end of the season. James Harden obviously opted into his contract, but for the purposes of requesting a trade somewhere else. Now, we'll acknowledge one thing here. The 76ers recently, I think it was maybe like a week or two ago at this point, but they recently said that they have not ruled out just keeping James Harden and not trading him at all. As respectably as possible, that's bullshit. There's, I don't think there's really any way that this can work out uh, for the team and the player. James Harden may not have any issues with his actual teammates, with the coaching staff, anything of that nature, but it seems pretty clear at this point that his relationship with the front office, with the management, is kind of fractured, and I'm not really sure you want to put the effort in for either side, really, for Harden or for the 76ers brass, to try and play through that, right? There have been situations where players haven't gotten along, players and coaches haven't gotten along, players and GMs haven't gotten along, and they just kind of shove it to the side. They forget about their feelings and they play out a season for the betterment of the team. I'm not sure that this is that kind of situation. I really think that those situations are exceptionally rare, and the Harden Philadelphia relationship does not feel like one that is salvageable at this point. Um, Especially considering the reports and the rumors coming out of Harden in his camp says that he's still 100% committed to leaving the team via a trade. There's been a lot of talk about him wanting to go specifically to the Clippers, to Los Angeles. I don't know how much that really matters to the 76ers, but the fact that instead of backpedaling, instead of saying, yes, I requested a trade, but I'm open to staying in Philadelphia, his people basically went full force the other way. Instead of just saying we would like a trade, they stepped that up to we would like a trade, and James Harden wants to go to the Clippers specifically. So the 76ers were hoping to take it down a step. Harden's people took it forward. So it really does feel like they're on separate pages there, and I don't think there's too many ways to reconcile that at this point. Of course, the problem on top of the problem here with the Harden trade is that the rumors coming out from rival teams here is that a lot of people see Harden's trade request as being, I think the phrase that's being tossed around is unreasonable. And that's not necessarily a dig on Harden requesting a trade. I think it's more about the price that the 76ers are sort of asking for in exchange. Of course, we don't know exactly what that price is. There have been some rumors that said that they want an all-star player back in exchange, which I mean, you're trading James Harden, right? You would expect to get someone, obviously maybe not a James Harden back, but someone who's not just salary filler or some sort of developing prospect. So there must be something else to that. Something else here. I don't know. Maybe Daryl Morey wants Harden plus firsts or something like that, for people to see that price is unreasonable. But because of that, there's no real immediate movement on the trade front, though, in terms of James Harden. And that's only making the situation worse. The longer that this sort of sits and stews, the harder it's going to be for that relationship, if it ever was salvageable in the first place, the harder it's going to be to reconcile any sort of situation where Harden actually plays for the 76ers again. So the fact of the matter is that the 76ers have no choice but to drag their feet on the Harden front with the trade because they can't find a willing partner. And the longer that they go on without making the trade happen, the worse the relationship between Harden and the organization actually gets. So that's a pretty major problem. You are pissing off your star player who already has asked for a trade. Problem number two comes from the fact that the 76ers have not done all that much to prepare the team to not have James Harden. And by that, I mean free agency for the 76ers was kind of just mid. They didn't do a whole lot here. Taking a look at who they've sort of signed, they brought in Patrick Beverley, they brought in Mo Bamba, they re-signed Daniel House Jr., Paul Reed, and I believe they recently announced they're getting Montrezl Harrell back as well. So 5 guys either re-signed or brought in as free agents, and none of them are bad, right? Pat Bev, Mo Bamba, relatively helpful. Mo Bamba kind of wore out his welcome with his last, not last team before that. I guess technically the last team was the Lakers. But either way, you know, he's got potential, but there's also some issues there. And then guys like House Jr., Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, they're not great, but they're solid bench guys for sure. But you take a look at what they lost here as well, a little bit of that strength goes away. Jalen McDaniels left. Shake Milton's gone. Georges Niang also ended up leaving. So you brought in some guys to effectively balance the scales in terms of your bench depth, but we need to sort of bear in mind here, balancing the scales is not great when you also have to factor in the fact that James Harden is going to leave or be traded. What you get back for him, who knows? Maybe that makes you feel a little bit better about all this. But making all these moves to kind of get back to your starting point in terms of free agency is not fantastic if you're losing a star player in a separate scenario. So that's the problem. They didn't lose massive pieces. Jalen McDaniel, Shake Milton, Georges Niang, I mean, they are replaceable. Although, I don't know. They were still pretty good players to lose. So they don't lose anything massive, but they don't bring in any definitive difference makers either, right? Pat Bev, Mo Bamba are not going to be guys who significantly move that needle. Patrick Beverley's going to play solid defense, that's for sure. He's going to say some stuff to the media, that's for sure. But do any of their additions really make you feel like the 76ers have a better chance of advancing past the second round than they did this year? I would argue no. And that is a problem for a team that may end up with a similar lineup minus James Harden. Now you have even more questions about whether they can actually make a deep playoff run. And then we haven't even really gotten to the actual thing that prompted me to make this video in the first place. That is problem number 3. And that is that Joel Embiid, the cornerstone of this franchise, the process himself, is potentially sort of running out of patience in Philly. Maybe giving some warning signs that that the 76ers are on the clock here, I guess would be the way to phrase it. He had a quote at, I think it was a film festival recently or some such. I'll probably just put the quote up on the screen here for you to read yourself. But basically, the gist of it is he wants to win a championship. I mean, everybody wants to win a championship, but Embiid is starting to sort of get that extra little bit of feeling here. In fact, I think we'll just read out the quote here from Embiid, what he said. He says, I just want to win a championship, whatever it takes. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else. I just want to have a chance to accomplish that. I want to see what it feels like to win that first one, and then you can think about the next one. It's not easy, but it takes more than one or two or three guys. You've got to have good people around you. Every single day, I work hard to be at that level so I can produce and make that happen. Now, that quote is interesting. It's not particularly inflammatory. You know, he's not shit talking his organization or his teammates, but he's also not giving them too much praise either. And I think the phrase that people have latched onto was that phrase, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else. That should have alarms ringing in the heads of the 76ers management here. Now, I do want to say right off the bat, let's get this out of the way here. There is no indication whatsoever that Joel Embiid has any plans or thoughts of leaving the 76ers. We have no indication that this is going to be like a James Harden situation where he would request a trade or legitimately ask out of Philadelphia, right? So let's lay that down right now, right? There's some people already putting out what the odds for the team that he would be traded to would be. That situation's not here yet, not by a long shot. However, if you're the 76ers, you have to acknowledge that your star player, the best guy on your team, the cornerstone of your franchise, effectively just made a statement where he's not ruling out playing somewhere else. His mindset for Joel Embiid has gone from, I want to win in Philly, to, I want to win. That does not lead immediately to a trade request. Like I said, that doesn't mean he wants out right this very second, but it means that the mindset might be shifting and you have limited time left to convince him that this is where he wants to be, that the team that you put around him is one that can actually reach the goals that he has set for himself. Now, in terms of how much time left, it's reasonable, right? Taking a look at his contract, he's under contract obviously for this upcoming season. You have 2 seasons under contract beyond that point, and then there's a player option for the 26-27 season. So you are going to have him for 3 seasons at least, potentially 4, unless he asks to be traded, which, as I said, I don't believe is going to happen anytime soon. So there is time, but you need to figure out what the hell you're doing as an organization, right? You cannot balance the future of your entire franchise on a gamble that Joel Embiid was just sort of joking around and doesn't actually feel any inclination to leave. He's made statements since that interview kind of implying that, you know, people are blowing this out of proportion. He was kind of joking. Maybe he was just trolling the Philly fan base, which, you know, good for him if he is. But the fact that the words were said, that there is any sort of even implication that he is open to not playing in Philly, is something that I think the 76ers should be paying attention to. I don't think they should overreact to it, but they can't ignore it. That's the number one thing here. Because for the longest time, the 76ers mindset as an organization has been, well, at least we still have Embiid, right? Markelle Fultz doesn't work out, but at least we have Embiid. Ben Simmons starts his decline, but at least we have Embiid. Let's trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. We get James Harden. We can't get past the second round still with James Harden. Well, at least we still have Embiid. At a certain point, you're not going to be able to say that anymore, at least not say it definitively. This guy can't be the fallback plan every single time. You need to start building around him. I mean, we see what happens when you fall short over and over and over again and you don't put together that team. That player asks out. That player was Damian Lillard, and he is demanding a trade from Portland, the only team that he's ever played for professionally. So the Joel Embiid situation is not there yet. We're not even close to a Damian Lillard situation. But the 76ers have to acknowledge that it could get there if they don't figure this out soon. They've got to, frankly, make the team better. They've got to figure out this James Harden situation. Either get him on side, get him on the same page and bring him back for another season, or get him traded. right? The situation cannot drag on for as long as it has, because without James Harden, this team is not ready, right? If there's no James Harden, Joel Embiid's running mate is Tyrese Maxey, is Tobias Harris, right? Two guys whose game I think are fantastic, but I don't think that they're enough. I don't think that's a I don't think that's a big three, right? Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid. That sounds like Joel Embiid and two sidekicks effectively. So do they have to bring in a star player? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But they can't continue going on the way that they are, because Joel Embiid has at least hinted that he is starting to get a little frustrated with the situation. I mean, the 76ers have never made it past the second round in the Eastern Conference since Embiid has been there. And this team wants to compete for championships. That's the long and the short of it. They are trying to make moves to compete, and they just haven't been able to do so, or at least not to the degree that they wanted. And now they have all these questions in the offseason. So, in short, is Embiid going to leave anytime soon? I think that's basically impossible. I do not believe that he is going to be looking for a trade anytime soon. But one day Joel Embiid's contract will end. The contract will expire. And have you done enough to convince him that his next contract should still be with the 76ers? Right now, I don't think you can definitively say yes, and that's a problem. That's something the 76ers need to address. Free agency is already sort of over, so you can't go back and find better guys, but you do still have the Harden situation. It needs to be resolved one way or another, and it needs to be resolved relatively quickly here, because you may have until the start of the season, technically speaking, to figure it out, but the longer that you wait, the longer you drag your feet, and the more embarrassing this gets, the more guys like Joel Embiid are going to be taking notes about the way that your organization operates. So, yeah. If you're a Philly fan, there's no need to push the panic button just yet, but you should be paying very close attention to what your organization is doing in the near future, because the players on that roster absolutely are. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Embiid was kind of just joking around, just trolling, as he is wont to do? Do you think that there's any sort of fire to the smoke here? Um, what do you think is the timetable for a James Harden situation to be resolved, if you think it even is? And also, I guess, what are your thoughts on the free agency plays? Guys like Beverly, guys like Mo Bamba, Montrezl Harrell, Paul Reed, Daniel House Jr. How much of an impact do you think that they will have? Because I did ever so slightly shit talk them a little bit, saying I don't think they're going to be massive difference makers. I still think that's true, but maybe you feel one of those guys I mentioned might have a bigger impact than I'm giving them credit for. But either way, please feel free to let me know what you think. Other than that, though, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.